I love making moments, making events, I can only call it a moment. You know, something which you've never seen, like being on the roof at Buckingham Palace. It's a moment. It's something which cannot happen in any other way, in any other time, in any other place. It has that moment in the universe. It has a unique space-time coordinate.
Well, certainly unique. Nobody ever did it before, and nobody will ever do it again. Were you very nervous?
I was...
petrified.
It was a whole exercise in fear management. And I will never forget it. It was really... I learned a lot from that. You know, I'm not a conventionally religious person, but I spent some time in a recovery place, which in a way reconnected me with my spirituality, which is always hard to explain, you know, but I actually did do this thing of abandoning my control to a higher power, you know, so my higher power took over. There was no other way. If I'd given in to the fear that I felt, I would have been paralyzed completely. You know, I worked and worked and worked at it, and I tried to make sure everybody else knew what they were doing as well as me, and then there was nothing more I could do. You know, I was in the hands of the weather and the gods, and the fact that I couldn't hear the orchestra, and all this sort of ridiculous amount of coordinates to the situation. And, I prayed, you know, I said, you know, this is out of my hands. I've done everything I can do, but this can still go horribly wrong. If I screw up on top of Buckingham Palace, this will be the flag of my life. I will forever be that guy who messed up on top of Buckingham Palace in front of 1 billion people. So, and then when it was done, I thanked my higher power. I got to tell you, I was like, yes, thank you. Something never to forget. And to be honest, nothing has ever seemed quite as difficult. I think of that every time something difficult comes along, you know, something scary comes along. But the funny thing is, most of the great things in life are scary, aren't they? Most of the things which are unusual enough to be great are very scary.
How did you get that sound, which sounded like an entire stadium full of people stamping?
Well, we were in Wessex Studios, and you know, a lot of people tell this story, but they mostly weren't there, I've got to tell you. And there were some boards lying around, which were part of the construction. It was a sort of, you know, work in progress kind of place. And they made a good noise when you stamped on them. And I had this sound in my head. I wanted it to sound like an audience might sound if this ever happened on tour. We're creating in the studio, but we're thinking live. And I thought, what can an audience do? They're standing there for the most part. They can't do a lot, actually. But they can stamp their feet, they can clap their hands, and they can sing. So the stamping noise, I just started stamping on this board, and it made a good noise. And I thought, well, if we do this 1,000,000 times and stack it all up, and I had this idea for putting delays on them as well, because in those days you didn't have machines to make, you know, multiple delays like you have now. I sort of figured out in my head that if you used prime numbers as delay times and built it up, it would sound big without ever sounding echoey. So we all stood around and did the stamps and the claps. I remember Roger looking at me like, what the hell are you doing? You know, are we wasting our time here? And we multi-tracked it basically, but a lot of times. And with those particular delays on bouncing from track to track, bouncing down as we did in those days, because we had a 24-track machine, but there must be hundreds of tracks on there. And it just built up, and it worked, and it eventually sounded the way I kind of had it in my head. And there was our stamps and clap track. And we did the same with the vocals. We sang it many, many times and multi-tracked it. It's only us, but it does sound like a big kind of football crowd. And those things have been sampled so many times. I think probably second to James Brown, we're probably the most sampled band in the universe. Everybody wants to make those stamps and clap sounds, and nobody can quite do it. I'm happy to say.
There's a wonderful bit of archive from Freddie recalling how he met Sid Vicious.
We were in the studios doing, I think Sheer Heart Attack was the track, so it wasn't on the Sheer Heart Attack album. But the Sex Pistols happened to be in the next studio. I got Johnny Rodden and Sid Vicious in and to listen to one of our tracks, and I said, I'll sing on one of yours if you sing on one of mine. You should have seen it. We can't be singing with Freddie Mercury and all that. I was wearing ballet pumps at the time, but it was great. I called Sid Vicious and called him Simon Ferocious or something, and he didn't like it at all. I said, what are you going to do about it? No. he was very well marked, so I said, did you really, make sure you scratch yourself in the mirror properly today, and tomorrow you're going to get something else. He hated the fact that I could even speak like that.
When did you first get the feeling that something wasn't right with Freddie's health? Did he have a lack of energy sometimes in performance, or?
No, in fact, he just didn't look quite, didn't have that bursting with health thing anymore, and he looked a little not well, really. And I think it was a very gradual realisation, because it was a gradual process,
And it was a secret that you had.
It was a secret, and also we didn't really want to admit it to ourselves. It was something that it was too awful to contemplate, really.
He didn't want it to impinge on his life or our life at all. He wanted to just carry on as normal, so that entailed not telling anybody, which was difficult, not even family. We didn't tell anybody at that time until it was obvious.
So there were just 4 people who knew?
Yeah, and Jim, our manager, yeah. And obviously, Freddie's nearest and dearest and his doctor, yeah. But that was it, and it was very strange. I say surreal because I think there's a part of us which didn't believe it. We thought, no, he's Freddie, he's special. Somebody's going to find a way of dealing with this, and he has to be able to be cured. But he was very, very unlucky. If it had been 18 months later even, he would have been able to have this wonderful cocktail, and he probably would have been alive today. But it just didn't exist at that time.
Is there a song that you could say that you are most proud of, or, came out really well that you didn't expect it to? I mean, I know that's a very tough question, but so much material.
I always enjoyed Under Pressure, which I thought that was a really good collaboration with David Bowie, and I think it's a good song.
As the band were jamming with David Bowie, John Deacon came up with that famous riff. They loved it, and off they went to lunch. When he came back, he'd forgotten it. Thankfully, though, Roger Taylor was able to recreate it, and the rest is history. When you look at that book, Brian, all those memories, all those experiences, what are your feelings on that?
Well, I suppose too mixed to even put into words. I feel proud. I feel proud of all those things we did. It's incredible, and it's quite nice to be reminded of them sometimes. I don't walk around the whole time thinking, oh, I did this and I did... You just don't. You don't live in the past, do you? You think about what's happening now and what's happening tomorrow. And that stuff is sort of always there, but I don't visit it. It's like put it away in a drawer somewhere, most of that stuff. But it's nice to see it out there. And I love books. I love publishing things. It's the same as records. You put it out there and it suddenly becomes something which is in people's lives. There's obviously 100,000 of these things out there, I guess, or there will be. You get this sort of feeling of having created something immortal. I mean, it isn't immortal because the supervolcano will blow up at some point, or else the asteroid will hit us and we'll all be history. But for the time being, we sort of feel immortal, don't we?
You've been listening to One Vision as we celebrate Queen's 40th year in the music industry. My thanks to Brian May and Roger Taylor. I'm Johnnie Walker.
The day will dawn.